on a Kyoto animation studio in July of last year. Aoba Shinji was arrested at a hospital where he had been receiving treatment for burns to his entire body. The 42-year-old man is suspected of setting gasoline alight in the studio in Kyoto on July 18th. The attack left 36 people dead and 33 injured. All the victims were employees of Kyoto Animation. Police say Aoba has admitted guilt. It appears he is unable to walk and was carried on a stretcher from the hospital to the police station. As Japan comes out of nearly 2 months under a state of emergency, the government is moving to shore up the economy while businesses work to bring customers back. The cabinet is set to approve a secondary supplementary budget bill for the current fiscal year on Wednesday. It's expected to exceed 100 trillion yen, or about $940 billion. The budget will include cash handouts of up to 200,000 yen for healthcare workers. It also includes a plan to help struggling shops by covering 2/3 of their rent for 6 months. With the state of emergency lifted, restaurants are now able to stay open an extra 2 hours until 10 p.m., but business is far from brisk for now. A Japanese-style pub in downtown Tokyo opened after about a month and a half, with a new focus on wearing masks, ventilation, and disinfection.
It's fun. I mainly telework, so face-to-face conversation feels so precious to me.
We have about 20–30% of customers compared to before. It can't be helped, though, as we've just reopened the pub.
Some commercial complexes are preparing to reopen as the capital moves to fully restart economic activities. Still, the optimism is coupled with anxiety. The staff at this clothing store wonders if customers will return. Sales are only about 30% of what they made for the same period last year. In total, more than 16,600 people have tested positive in Japan, and 860 have died. The Japanese government plans to require Prime Minister Abe Shinzo to undergo a 2-week quarantine if he attends a Group of 7 summit that could possibly be held in the United States next month. Abe has said he wants to attend if circumstances allow to discuss coronavirus drugs and creating a framework to make vaccines widely available. Japan requests that any citizen who arrives from the U.S. self-isolate for 2 weeks at designated locations to help prevent the further spread of the virus. There are calls within the government for Abe to follow the rules like any other citizen. Officials will consider ways for him to self-isolate. One idea is to have him work from his official residence next to the Prime Minister's office. People in Britain are angry at a chief advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson who was found to have traveled hundreds of kilometers during the country's lockdown. Dominic Cummings reportedly drove more than 400 kilometers from London with his family in late March to visit his parents' home. Cummings says he wanted his extended family to care for his son in case he and his wife both fell ill with the coronavirus. His wife was already showing symptoms. Johnson is defending his top aide, saying Cummings acted responsibly, legally, and with integrity. But Douglas Ross, a junior minister in the Scotland office, resigned on Tuesday. He released a statement that said the vast majority of people did not agree with Cummings' action. Opposition lawmakers are also crying foul, and a public opinion poll showed that 71% of respondents believe Cummings breached the country's stringent stay-at-home orders. 59% said he should resign. Britain began easing its lockdown measures this month. Experts say the controversy could prompt citizens to flout the government's rules, raising the risk of a resurgence of infections. Traders have returned to the floor of the New York Stock Exchange after 2 months away, but their workplace is not the one they left behind. NHK World's Catherine Kobayashi reports.
New York's governor honored a tradition that goes back a century and a half. He rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange after months of silence.
They wanted to get back to business, but they wanted to be smart, and they're doing it in a way that keeps people safe.
Traders have been working electronically. Now only a quarter of the normal number of them will be allowed on the floor. They can't take public transit. They have to get their temperature checked, wear face masks, and maintain social distancing. The measures did not appear to dampen their optimism. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped more than 500 points, up more than 2%. Many Americans have twisted together the stock market and the economy ever since the Great Depression. But stocks do not reliably reflect economic health. The official unemployment rate has risen above 14%, and the Congressional Budget Office estimates the economy will shrink this year by more than 5%.
I think the market needs to see our economy just grow and move in the right direction. Clearly, what's happened is going to affect major corporations.
Traders say Americans have been waiting for signs, and they say the reopening of the trading floor signals things are moving forward. Catherine Kobayashi, NHK World, New York.
Now, France is set to inject 8 billion euros into its auto industry, which has been hard hit by a plunge in sales due to the coronavirus. President Emmanuel Macron announced a deal worth around $8.8 billion on Tuesday during a visit to a car parts plant in northern France. The package includes subsidies for people who scrap gas-powered vehicles made more than 15 years ago to buy electric cars instead. The program starts on June 1st. The government is also pledging support for development of electric car batteries and fuel cell vehicles. It hopes to make French automakers more competitive in these fields.
I want France to be the first country in Europe to produce more than 1 million electric and hybrid vehicles annually within 5 years.
These latest steps are part of Macron's plan to make the country's auto industry a leader in environmentally friendly technologies. The coronavirus crisis has proved to be a challenging time for people struggling with addiction. A growing number of those in treatment are reporting relapses, sometimes after many years of staying sober. Our next story looks at why the virus is harming their recovery.
This 72-year-old man has been receiving treatment for alcohol addiction.
How have you been?
I drank while I was asked to stay at home.
The man had been sober for 12 years before the pandemic, but observing the stay-at-home measures in April, he couldn't resist the temptation.
I didn't have anything to do except watch television. I let down my guard and gave in to my impulse to drink.
Psychiatrist Toshida Shuta has been treating people with alcohol addiction for decades. He says recently there's been a surge in the number of patients relapsing. He blames the coronavirus pandemic, which has fractured social relationships.
Having to stay at home for 1 or 2 months is a crisis for people recovering from alcohol addiction. Temptations are overpowering when they're alone, and they relapse.
This 48-year-old man had not had a drink for almost 2 years. He had been attending group counseling almost every day, encouraged by other people in recovery. But the meetings were cancelled because of social distancing measures, depriving him of the emotional support they provided.
I was overwhelmed by the anxiety of not seeing my friends at the meetings, so I reached out for a bit of alcohol. It's very challenging to not have their support at this crucial time.
But during difficult times like this, people start to look for reasons to excuse their compulsions.
People with other addictions are finding themselves in the same situation. Takemura Michio is a director of a hospital that specializes in treating patients with addictions. Some suffer from kleptomania. He says he's getting more calls from police recently about patients who have been caught stealing.
They are facing more anxiety in the epidemic and feel their lives are collapsing.
Dr. Takemura points to the case of a woman who has been in treatment for kleptomania for 7 years. The coronavirus pandemic caused her to lose her job, a place where she felt valued. Not long after, she started shoplifting again.
We must fill the psychological void with healthy human relationships. These problems can't be solved unless we make some effort to maintain connections between people.
Well, that is why support groups across Japan have started to host online meetings. It is one way for people struggling with addiction to stay connected, encourage each other, and hopefully stay in recovery. Let's check out the world weather now with our meteorologist Tsietsi Monare. So Tsietsi, several severe conditions are expected in various parts of the United States, and residents are advised to take caution. Tell us more.
There's certainly lots happening in